Okay, welcome back. So today we are going to be continuing on with the story of Lost Girl. So let me go ahead and pull that up, just one moment. And last time we left off with the bunny girl having brought Layla out to her house and out to a big field of sunflowers, and she kind of told a lot of her feelings to Layla, and they had this moment together. And then after they had this moment together, Layla kind of just jumped in and embraced I'm forgetting the Serena. Oh yeah, embraced Serena, and the response that they had, for the one person thought it was a really touching moment, that everything was going to go great, and then the other person just kind of let it fall flat. And so that's kind of where we were the last time. And so we were following the bunny girl as she was heading home, and just seeing her response to everything that happened. So let's go ahead and continue off with the story. I can't hear the music. Oh, I do the same thing every time. Okay. I should be able to hear myself now. I should be able to hear the music. Maybe this is just the part where there's no music. Okay. The walk and ride back from the train station was cold. Colder than any winter snow that Serena had ever felt. This was a coldness that took place in Serena's heart, a frost that froze her entire body and soul. It was an ice she didn't know how to unthaw. What had gone wrong here? Serena asked herself, and how can I fix it? But it wasn't so simple that she could just answer it in her head just then. She would have to spend the next few days and think it through, hoping that she could come to some sort of solution. Something that wouldn't leave them both sitting 2 feet apart, but feeling like a million miles. Serena couldn't remember the walk back to her dorm that night, nor could she remember nearly anything about what happened since that night as the next week came and went. She thought about messaging Layla, but she didn't know where to start. There we go. Time to plug it in. She thought about messaging Layla, but she didn't know where to start. She went to the library every night to try to see her, but Layla was nowhere to be found. The forgotten books really were forgotten, Serena thought, with at least one of them there to remember. I miss her, Felix. I miss her. The bunny girl was laying on her bed, her fox plush pressed tightly against her chest. Ever since that night, her heart ached with sadness and an unbearable longing to see the fox girl. But she had seen or heard no signs of Layla since that evening, since they had kissed. For years, Serena imagined what a kiss might feel like, but she had been so focused on getting into college, too busy with her family to even think about a romance. The thought of dating someone hadn't even crossed her mind, and she certainly never thought about the gender of the person she wanted to kiss. And yet, her first kiss happened suddenly and unexpectedly, with a girl that she would have considered up until that kiss to be her very best friend, her truest companion. What happened? And now, nearly a month later, Layla was just gone. Out of her life, and Serena didn't understand why. There was so much she didn't understand about relationships, be they romantic or friendships. What was she supposed to feel now? What was she supposed to do now? Outside her bedroom window, she watched as the rain continued to pour down the window pane. It had been raining all week, so much that even some streets in the area had begun to flood. Serena knew it had been a while since the last good rain, that it was necessary for the natural order of things, but she also couldn't help but think that the rain was an echo of her sadness, her loneliness. The more Serena thought about the situation, the further her own emotions began to drown her. Was she not meant to have a friend? Was she not meant to find love? Was this God's way of telling her that she was meant to be alone, and that she shouldn't have tried to chase her dreams? Her tears began to echo the rain outside, her cheeks the glass. Why can't I just have one person who accepts me, who loves me? Why? She had the desire to throw her fox plush across the room and pound on the bed like a kid throwing a tantrum, but she knew it wouldn't help. It wasn't Felix's fault that this had happened, and it certainly wouldn't help to bother the neighbors with her outburst. This was her problem, her fault. If I wasn't so dense, so ignorant, I wouldn't know what was wrong, or I would know what was wrong. I would. I could. I just want to fix it. But I don't even know what to fix. A beep from her cell phone caused her to jolt, instantly grabbing it and unlocking the screen in hopes that it would be Layla. But it was a text from her mom, asking her how school was going. She sighed. After failing that test earlier this week, she simply couldn't focus. She really didn't want to talk about it. She almost tossed the phone back onto the bed when she saw Layla's contact info. Her contact was red, much like her brilliant and fluffy mane and tail. And Serena had even managed, after much persistence, to get Layla to pose so that they could get a picture. So she'd get a picture of her to put onto her phone. Layla's face stared back at her, an embarrassed blush across her face. Serena's tears flowed all the more. I want to see her. I want to see her. She begged herself to press the button, her fingers shaking. But she couldn't. She was just a nuisance to Layla, after all, wasn't she? She didn't understand her at all. She doesn't even know how the fox girl feels after all. But was that really okay? To just disappear from the other's life? To let the other disappear from hers? Her mom messaged back again, in an emotion meant to swipe away the notification. Serena accidentally dialed her number. The call instantly connected, her mother on the other end. Sweetie, how are you? You almost never call. It always worries me when you do, like you're in some sort of trouble, and... Serena broke out into tears at the sound of her mother's voice. Even from a young age, Serena would never cry in front of anyone except for her mother. She'd always hold back her tears until her mother was there or until she was alone, never wanting to shed them for anyone else. At first, she tried to hold them back from even her mother, but sorry, they're just repeating mother so many times. But her mother always assured her, "I'll be your well, princess, so just let your tears fall." And from then on, she always bawled in front of her mother whenever she had a desire to cry on someone's shoulder. "Oh, sweetheart. I messed up, Mom. I thought that everything was okay, but I hurt her. I lost her. Sweetie, we all mess up from time to time. Are you sure you've lost her? Have you tried to talk to her? She's not in the library where she usually is, and I'm too scared of hurting her. Of pushing her even further away. She hates me. Oh, princess, nobody hates you. And anyone who does is not worth holding on to. Mom, I'm serious. So am I. From what you've told me, this Layla seems like a nice, responsible girl. I'm sure all you need to do is talk to her. Talk to her, and if you can't come to an agreement, then say your goodbyes. Talk to her? But what do I say? Serena was speaking in between sobs, and she was sure that if it was anybody but her mother, they wouldn't have understood her. But her mother replied back earnestly, as if Serena was pronouncing every word like it was out of the dictionary. Her mother always liked to call it Mama Bear language, where Serena could say nearly anything and her mother could always understand it. Just tell her how you feel. How you really feel, Serena, and then the rest will come. Promise. How she really felt. Serena had been contemplating for days on that thought alone. But she hadn't been quite able to put it into words. Perhaps, though, she didn't need the words. She just needed the feeling. Tell her how I feel? That's right, dear. You're gonna be fine. You can do this. Inhaling and exhaling a few deep breaths, Serena nodded. She used the back of her sleeve to wipe away the tears and blew her nose into a couple tissues. Her face probably looked like a wreck, but she knew it was time. She couldn't keep sitting in agony, doing nothing about it, and lose Layla forever. Thanks, Mom. I'm going to find her. Be careful, dear. It is quite late. I will, Mom. Bye. Good luck, sweetie. Hitting the end call button, Serena instantly set her sights on the contact she was staring at before, Layla's. Steadying her nerves, she hit the call button. Not surprisingly, Layla didn't pick up. But a few moments later, Serena received a text from the Fox. I don't think we should see each other anymore. I need to see you. I won't stop looking until I find you. She waited a few minutes, but received no reply. I'm gonna find her, Felix, and I'm gonna do it by myself. Serena grabbed her coat and her umbrella, preparing to face the rainy night. With another deep inhale and exhale, Felix tucked away on her nightstand, Serena set out to find Layla, wherever she may be. Serena began her search with the places closest to her, the places where Layla and she had gone on adventures. The places where Layla was most likely to be from what Serena could gather from their conversations. She scoured the labyrinth, every hall and every bookshelf. She even asked the librarian with the cold stare if she had seen her come in today. The librarian replied with her usual scowl, shaking her head. Serena double and triple checked, but she found no sign of Layla. She walked back out into the rain and began to search anew. Next, she tried the convenience store where they had met to go to the aquarium at. She looked around the premises, on the sidewalks, and even inside. She asked the clerk inside if she had seen the fox, but he shook his head no. And then she stepped back into the storm. She tried the cafe, which was just down the street. But amongst the many patrons of the cafe, she found not one with the fox ears. She asked the staff, but the answer she got, yet again, was that Layla was not to be found. The raindrops fell a bit harder as she trudged through them, but she was not yet defeated. Her next destination, she knew, was full of water and sea creatures. She did not have the time or the money to check out the whole place. So she simply checked the outside premises, asking the clerk, the same bright female she knew from her last visit, if she had seen the other. The clerk shook her head and Serena bowed in apology. She raced back outside, the turtle pin clipped into her hair, seeming to feel a bit heavier against her forehead. Stealing one glance at her watch, indicating it was well past her bedtime, Serena ran to the next destination. The park where, under the heavy clouds, she could no longer see any signs of the stars. But she knew inside that the stars were still there somewhere, just beyond the gray storm swarming above her. She trudged on. She ran to the train station where none of the attendants had seen a fox all night. She ran to the university where no one was in sight. She ran to the local shops and frowned. She had exhausted all of her options, and Layla was nowhere to be found. Except Serena ran towards the closest one to her, a female student who looked as if she was on her way back home. Few were on the streets at this time of night, and Serena was lucky that someone was still around. "Please, miss, could you help me?" "Yes, what is it?" The girl turned around and looked at her expectantly. "Do you know of the Raylan Manor?" "Of course, everyone here knows it. It's the biggest place in Everton, though the owners are real sticklers and won't let anyone visit it." "I'm shocked that you haven't." "Are you a tourist?" "We don't get many of those here." "No, nothing like that. I just started at Everton College a little over a month ago, and I wanted to see it." "I know that must sound a bit strange, since it's night and in the rain and all, but I fear I won't get to see it if I don't go now." The young girl tilted her head curiously, but after a moment she nodded. She didn't quite understand Serena's desires or reasonings, but she knew that it was extremely important to Serena at the very least. She pointed down the street, and Serena followed her finger. "It's down that street. Cross over into Darwin Street on the left in about a mile. Then continue on until you see it up the hill to the right. You can't miss it." "Thank you so much." Her destination in sight, Serena sprinted towards the direction of Raylan Manor without a second thought. For quite a few minutes she wondered if the other had led her in the wrong direction, or if she truly missed it. But after about 10 minutes down Darwin Street, she saw the tip of a house peeking over the trees on a hill in the near distance. "You're there, Layla. You're there." Serena went into full sprint mode, using every inch of the power in her legs to get her there as fast as possible. She ignored the sign that said private property. Luckily that the front gates were in fact open at this time of night. She ran to the front door, which took her a considerable amount of time due to the vast amount of garden that spread out on either side of her, that in the dark looked like a lush marshland. Upon approaching the large, ornate double doors, Serena looked up at the massive construct that was Rayland Manor. It was the largest building she had ever seen in person, probably twice the size of Labyrinth, with massive dark peaks that breached the sky. The roof was made of redwood that resembled a bloody sunset. Its curved windows were like dozens of decorative mirrors, each one a reflection of the storm. The building itself was made out of coffee-colored brick, with numerous balconies all arranged perfectly as if they were out of a painting. Thankfully, when she reached the doors, there was an overhang just before the doorway where she was able to get out of the rain. She unfurled her umbrella and held it at her side. She did her best to shake off all the rain, but after running for hours in almost flooded streets, she found that to be quite an impossible task. So, wiping down her hair, hoping to look presentable, before she pressed her finger down on the large red doorbell near the side of the doors. She wiped down her hair, hoping to look presentable, before she pressed her finger down on the large red doorbell near the side of the doors. She stepped backwards, waiting to see if anyone would answer. Serena waited very patiently, but even after nearly 5 minutes, no one showed up. She pressed the doorbell again, hoping that perhaps it was just gone. She pressed the doorbell again, hoping that perhaps it had just gone unheard the first time. She wondered as she looked around the yard, seeing no vehicles and no lights in the house, if anyone was even home at all. After a few minutes of silence, she rapped her knuckles against the door in hopes that maybe the doorbell was just broken. Please, answer. Serena put her hand over her heart in a way that she did when she was trying to steady it, to keep it from beating out of her chest in anticipation. A few more moments passed, and Serena's fist was nearly on the door again when the door creaked open in front of her. Excuse my tardiness. What business do you have at the Rayland estate? The woman who answered was in her 30s, a young maid who was in her uniform. Her hands were clenched in front of her, and she looked at Serena skeptically and curiously. Serena bowed to the maid, her hands shaking as she steadied her grip on the umbrella's handle, so as not to drop it embarrassingly. I need to speak with Layla. Is she here? Miss Layla? She doesn't... Ah, you must be the friend that she was carrying on about. Normally she's so quiet, doesn't bring any friends home. But for the past month she's not shut up about you. At least until early last week. Poor girl. She's been locked up in her room ever since she came in that night. Do you know what's happened to her? That's why I'm here. I really need to speak to her, so if you'd please... What's all this, Charlotte? Who's at the door? Nearly jumping out of her skin at the familiar voice, Serena had to stop herself from bolting into the house as the pair of footprints, Layla's footprints, approached. Then she came into view, the beautiful sunset fox in all her glory, and Serena's heart flipped at the sight of her. Layla's eyes went wide as soon as she saw Serena, and then her mouth twisted into an agonizing look as she turned away. Charlotte, get rid of her. But Miss Layla, she... Charlotte, I said. Layla. Serena rose her voice, louder than she had ever spoken in her life. So loud that Layla and Charlotte turned towards her with eyes as large as saucers. I need to speak with you. Please. Layla looked at her. Her gaze softened, but also growing sadder with each moment her eyes rested on Serena. Miss Layla, why don't we invite her in for tea? She's completely drenched, and I'm certain that she's freezing. We certainly can't send her back out in this. We can wait until the storm is over, then send her away if you wish. But I, for one, certainly am not about to let a guest of the Raylan Manor catch a cold on my account. It would be against my code of honor as a maid, especially not one who is so kind with such proper manners as this. You could learn a thing or two, miss. Save it, Charlotte. A cup of tea and some blankets. Then we send her on her way. Send her to the study. Right away, miss. Layla and Charlotte both retreated back into the manor, with Charlotte gesturing for Serena to walk inside. Layla instantly disappeared, walking off towards what Serena understood as the study. Amazing. As soon as she walked inside the entrance hall, Serena felt her whole body become light in beauty. The interior of Raylan Manor, it turned out, was just as impressive as the exterior. There were red velvet carpets with rosewood floors, golden portraits lined neatly on the coffee brick walls. There were golden chandeliers and an ornate staircase spiraling up to heaven. This manor has been around for nearly 200 years, inspired by the European Gothic style. Rumor has it that one who had this house commissioned was a writer of Gothic literature, but no one knows for sure. It has been passed down through the Raylan family for the last century now, passing through 3 families, in fact, including this one. As she spoke, the maid set about taking Serena's umbrella and placing it in the umbrella stand by the front door. She wasted no time in retrieving a towel and began to wipe Serena down head to toe, with such professionalism that the bunny girl didn't even question it or try to demand otherwise. There you are, dry as a flame. I'll show you to the study now, if you're ready. Yes, if you wouldn't mind. Right this way, miss. Serena, was it? Serena nodded. Apparently, Layla had indeed been talking about her, if the maid remembered her name, for she, in the moment, had forgotten to introduce herself. But Charlotte didn't seem to mind. After all, the maid had not introduced herself either. Layla had been the one to call her out by name. Led Serena down a long, dark hallway full of gorgeous Renaissance paintings, with the occasional red flower, cushioned bench situated opposite an ornate wooden mini table with a bouquet centerpiece. Serena admired every bit of craftsmanship that went into this place, jealous that someone could live in a place so grand. But of course she knew that even a place as grand as Raylan Manor wasn't without its loneliness. Layla had said so. Miss Layla is right inside this room, Miss Serena. I will bring the tea and blankets along shortly. Thank you, Charlotte. Just as Serena approached the door, Charlotte disappeared deep inside the mansion to go procure tea. Serena inhaled another breath, steadying herself to confront Layla before she twisted the handle and walked inside the room. Layla had already claimed her seat by the time Serena had entered the room, the large den desk in the center. Spread out in front of the fox was an open novel, which she had just looked up from reading, a pen holder, scattered papers written in dark ink, and numerous other office supplies. I suppose Charlotte will be here before long. Yes. Then I suppose I'll wait for any serious discussions until after she has returned and left completely. I fear we both have a lot to say. Serena nodded, her eyes downcast. She wanted to speak her mind now, but Layla was right. If she spoke now, she'd most likely get interrupted by Charlotte, and she wouldn't get her point across in time. So Serena felt it best to examine the study while she waited. If there was any room she wanted to spend the most time inside of a mansion, the study was definitely it. The walls were lined with bookshelves, nearly 20 of them, and each space on them was filled with books. There were 2 red-cushioned couches and a coffee table with a rose flower arrangement. Not to mention the den desk with its padded desk chair, which was, Serena thought, nearly 10 times as big as the desk that she had back in her dorm. Behind the den desk, Serena noted, was a portrait of a family portrait of 3 foxes with the little girl framing the center. I suppose you've never seen my parents. This portrait was painted when I was about 5 years old. I wonder what happened to that girl there. The young fox girl in the photo Serena studied was holding on to both her parents. The young fox girl in the photos that Serena studied was holding on to both her parents' hands and was smiling tenderly. It truly looked like a time when Layla was the most happy, before she was tainted with the plague of loneliness. Up until I was about 7, my parents were almost always around. They were busy with work, but they always took time to see me, to play with me. I was so happy. But sometime after my 7th birthday, they changed. I don't really understand why, but they became obsessed with work, so much so that they let it take over their lives. They forced me to stay inside the manor after that, never to leave until I came of age. I didn't have anywhere to run to, though, so it didn't even occur to me to run away. Anyway. It was comforting to Serena that at least Layla got to experience part of a normal childhood. But it also made her sad that it ended so early in the other's life. She knew how easily it was for people to become obsessed, especially if it was over their life's work. If Serena and her brothers hadn't grown up on a farm, working with their parents constantly, perhaps Serena would have been in a similar situation. It made Serena even sadder to realize that Layla didn't have anywhere else that she wanted to go. We can't make our parents' decisions, but we do have the power to make our own. And I believe that you have a place to run to now. Or rather, a person. Serena. But before Serena could elaborate on that, Charlotte rushed into the room with 2 fleece blankets folded over her shoulders, carrying a full porcelain tea set on a tray in her hands. She set down the tray in the middle of the coffee table and the blankets down on the couch, one on each. I do apologize if I've interrupted. If you 2 need anything else, then I am just a bell away. Thank you, Charlotte. And that'll be all. Serena nodded her thanks, and the maid disappeared, closing the door to the study behind her. Serena wondered if they really did have a bell that they used to summon maids, like something out of a storybook. But she had more pressing matters to discuss than bells and maids. So, tea? We have a rather complicated system, so I'll set it out. Layla stood up from the den desk and made her way over to the couch opposite of where Serena was standing. She began to methodically place the various cups and bowls into various places across the coffee table, all without disturbing the rose centerpiece even once. She poured and set down 2 filled teacups and their matching saucers, one on either side of the coffee table. She pointed towards multiple different bowls, which were all lidded and filled with various substances. And this is creamer, sugar, honey, lemon, and that tiny tin has cookies. This looks amazing. She prepared it all so fast, too. I swear, Charlotte keeps a tea set on the ready at all times. At that, Serena giggled. She sat down on the couch and began to prepare her tea. She took 3 sugar cubes, about 2 tablespoons full of milk, and stirred. Milk tea with sugar was always a favorite of hers since she was a kid. Layla herself added a tablespoon of honey and sprinkled it with lemon before casually taking a sip. And the way she sat, so properly, made Serena feel out of place. It's black darling tea, from all the way in India. One of the best teas money can buy. Charlotte always makes sure we have it on hand. It's a personal favorite of mine. Serena took that as her invitation to drink. She lifted the teacup, and as soon as the liquid hit her tongue, she was punched with a barrage of flavor. The use of spices gave it a kick, but the milk and warmth of it made it feel like home. It smelled like cinnamon, and Serena cupped it in her hands as if she was holding a golden treasure. It makes me feel all cozy. Charlotte will be happy to hear that you liked it. Despite herself, Layla smiled, and Serena's smile deepened. But upon remembering the moment a week ago, they both frowned and directed their gaze to the black tea in their cups. I know you might not want to talk about it, but I just can't ignore this. I just forget everything we did together. Just forget everything we did together, like it was nothing. I can't not see you anymore and be okay. I know it hurts right now, but time heals all wounds. You will be okay, eventually. A life without you, Layla, without the one I care about most, is not a life at all. How am I supposed to be okay? Serena was shaking again, her teacup chattering against the saucer, and Layla set her cup on the coffee table. It was only half empty. You've made it clear how you feel about me, Serena, and I've made it clear how I feel about you, and it's clear to me that those aren't the same. This, it hurts me too. Believe me. But we can't just keep going and pretend that everything is okay. can't lie and hide my feelings anymore. When Serena looked up, she saw a glaze of tears cross Layla's eyes, ones that matched Serena's own. Both of them were upset for their own reasons, and those reasons were both understandable. But there was something Serena felt would easily mend this. Then don't. What? What are you saying? Don't hide your feelings, Layla. I want to see you, the real you. I want to see everything. I don't care how dark, how deep, I want to see all of it. I want to see you, Layla. And if you're telling me the truth, then you should want to see me too. So, why are you trying to hide? Why are you trying to push me away? You told me once I shouldn't run away from my feelings, that I should face them head on. I'm ready to do that now. But it seems like you don't want to listen, that you've already decided how I feel. At this, Layla stood up, her hands clenched into fists. And what the hell else am I supposed to think? You walk up to me, tell me what you want me to be. Tell me that you want me to be your forever friend when I'm totally in love with you. You walk up to me and tell me that you want me to be your forever friend when I'm totally in love with you, and you don't even realize it. Serena's eyes went wide. She didn't expect Layla to get this emotional, and she didn't like that Layla was upset, but she felt it necessary to let all her thoughts out and feelings, even if it didn't work out in the end. That way she could go home at least. That way she'd go home saying at least that she spoke her true feelings and that she tried her best. She gave Layla a firm and serious look. And do you not think that I am in love with you? That the reason I want to be with you, want you to be my friend, is because I love you? I always thought living with and loving my best friend was just a pipe dream, but with you, I felt that it could actually be possible. And it's what I want more than anything in the world. Layla looked as if someone had slapped her in the face. She was shaking, unable to comprehend what Serena was telling her. But you didn't even kiss me back. Why? Serena sighed, looking down at her nearly empty teacup. Because I was surprised. I knew you felt strongly about me, but I wasn't for sure what, and it took me a while to realize how I actually felt about it all. But I know now. I know that I love you, Layla. And I want to be with you. More than anything. Serena. Before she knew it, Serena was in Layla's arms. Although they had a coffee table and a tea set between them, it felt as if nothing in the world could stop them as long as they were together. They held each other with a fierceness, afraid that if they let go, they would never be able to touch again. love you, Serena, so much. I love you too, more than anything. When they pulled apart, Layla cupped Serena's face in her hands, and Serena felt herself given to Layla's warmth. She was not afraid now, nor was she surprised. She knew how she felt, and even as Layla's mouth crashed against hers, she felt her lips crash against the others with the same amount of fierceness, of warmth. After a few moments, their lips parted. They both smiled, pressing their foreheads against each other's. Let's never separate again. Let's save it here. Okay. 1 year later. It's even prettier than I imagined. Don't get too excited or you'll fall in. Serena stuck her tongue out at Layla, ignoring her and continuing to run towards the water. When she reached the spot where the land and water met, she took off her sandals, allowing the chilled elements to sink through her toes. She felt the fall ocean breeze against her skin, breathed in and let out a content sigh. I don't know why no one comes here in the fall. It's so nice. People are too obsessed with their scorching weather and shorts and sun umbrellas. They'd save a lot more money if they came in the fall, honestly. The bunny girl chuckled and the fox girl smiled at her. Serena never got tired of Layla's sarcasm, nor did Layla ever get tired of Serena's wonder and everything. It had been a year since they had kissed in the study, since they had become girlfriends, and their adventures, they decided, were only just beginning. Adventures like watching the Orionids' meteor shower on the beach in the fall. They set out beach chairs and blankets just above the current tide, leaning back so they could get the full view of the open night sky. The stars responded by waving to them under the gold crescent moon. Serena was grateful that she had listened to Layla, and had agreed to spend the second to last weekend in October watching shooting stars. Ah, there's one. Every time a shooting star appeared, Serena pointed at it like a child who was seeing something for the first time. Although she had seen shooting stars before, she had never gone to a meteor shower with another person, not even her family or Layla until now. So this really was a first for her. Have you made any wishes yet? Only one. Just one? But we've seen at least 5 stars by now. I only need one wish, for you to be by my side forever. Layla couldn't help but blush, rolling her eyes. You don't need to rely on a star for that, you know. I know, but it's the first one that came to mind. Then, what about wishing for yourself? For myself? Not about the two of us, or someone else, but for yourself alone. What's your wish, Serena? Serena thought long and hard, as her and Layla settled into a comfortable silence, as they watched the stars glisten above them. If she had one wish, but she could only wish for something for herself, nothing to do with anyone else, then What would she choose? Eventually, she settled on a wish, holding her hands over her heart and closing her eyes as if she was saying a prayer to the stars. For my writing to reach someone, even if it becomes a forgotten novel, like The Starless Magician, I want it to mean something to someone. And if it can touch even one person, then that's enough for me. That is so like you, Miss Star. Always wishing for other people's happiness. Even as your own wish. But I want to make other people happy. What's wrong with that? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. In fact, I'd say you're doing a great job of it. You think? I couldn't be happier than being here with you. Layla reached over and took Serena's hand in her own. I'm glad, because no matter where we are, I'm always happiest when I'm with you. Serena gave the other's hand a strong squeeze, and they both turned their attention back to the stars. They were here, together, hand in hand, and that was all they needed to feel happy, to feel at peace. So, have you wished it all yet? Oh, just once. Oh? We must have seen nearly 20 shooting stars by now. Serena teased, mocking Layla's voice. Layla rolled her eyes, even though she knew Serena couldn't see it. But Layla was smiling, brighter than ever. I had wanted for us to be together forever. Well, 2 wishes are stronger than one. They both squeezed each other's hands, feeling each other's warmth, feeling each other's hearts between them. They were connected on a level that was quite unlike. They were connected on a level that was quite like the stars. They were each one bright star in a million, separated by fate, but they had managed to find each other across the darkness of the sky. And that had changed everything. Serena? Yeah? I love you. Always. I love you. Forever. In the labyrinth of life, the 2 stars had connected, creating a brightness that was unlike any in the universe. They created their own story. They set their own chart to revolve around one another. Together, they shone so much brighter than they ever had on their own. And they vowed to never be forgotten, to never be apart. Always and forever. The end. That's a beautiful picture between them. And the sun setting in the background. It is a really heartwarming end to the story. Is this the end? Yeah, it doesn't go further. I'm gonna save it here. Alright. Well, that was the story of the lost girl. I really enjoyed the story. It was a really nice tale between them. And I love how they connected, how they both found love at the end. And so I hope that you guys can find love too. And thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed this series. Alright, well, until the next time, remember to share the love. You guys are awesome, and you'll see me later.